There is something that I wanted to address, and I only plan on addressing it once. So if we continue to get asked about it, we will refer to this moment in time, or we will use this time to deflect and talk about our teammates. Quite frankly, I believe me and Azzy's personal relationship is nobody's business but our own. And what we choose to share is completely up to us. But as media members, I understand you guys have a job to do, and you guys have to ask questions about the basketball aspect of it. So that's what I will be addressing today.
Pay attention to what just happened there. That wasn't a casual statement. That was a prepared response delivered with the kind of confidence that says, I'm shutting this down right now. Paige Bueckers just told the entire WNBA media corps that her relationship with Azzi Fudd is off limits, and the room went silent. Not a single follow-up question, not one reporter pushed back, and that tells you everything you need to know about the state of WNBA journalism right now.
We've always conducted ourselves as such, and we've never let anything that happens off the court carry onto the court, and that's what we continue to do. And I'm not entirely sure if this is new to media members, to social media, to new people who are watching the WNBA or women's basketball in general, but me and AZ are not new to this. We've been doing this for a long time. We have countless reps at it. We have a lot of experience with it, so we will continue to use that experience to show up and be professionals, great teammates, great leaders, the hardest workers, and continue to show up and do our job and help the Dallas Wings win basketball games.
Now here's where this gets complicated, because Paige isn't wrong about one thing. She and Azzi have been navigating this dynamic since their UConn days. They've played together as a couple before. They know how to handle it professionally. But that's not the issue. The issue is what happens when you're both on the same WNBA roster, collecting WNBA salaries, with WNBA gambling lines attached to your performance, and one of you just got drafted #1 overall to join the other's team. That's when nobody's business becomes everybody's business. Because Dallas didn't just draft a talented player, they drafted their star guard's girlfriend. And whether Paige likes it or not, that decision raises legitimate questions about conflicts of interest, team chemistry, and what happens if this relationship implodes mid-season.
All right, and the fact that they, and I'm talking about Azzi Fudd and Paige Bueckers, they having made their relationship public, and they being celebrities, puts their relationship under a spotlight, whether they like it or not. Never mind the conflicts of interest, at least these two are on the same team. But the problem is, if they break up, then you've got a fractured locker room. You got a locker room that just got burnt down if they broke up, right? Even worse, you got players on opposing teams.
This is the conversation the WNBA doesn't want to have, because the league has spent years celebrating its LGBTQ representation. Pride nights, rainbow uniforms, public relationships as a form of activism, all of that is great for visibility and inclusion. But there's a flip side nobody wants to acknowledge. When you make relationships part of your public brand, when you celebrate couples playing together, when the league itself promotes these dynamics as feel-good stories, you don't get to suddenly claim privacy when people start asking practical questions. What happens when Paige and Azzi have an argument the morning of a playoff game? What happens if they break up in February and still have 3 months of the season to play together? What happens if one of them gets benched and the other thinks it's personal? These aren't hypothetical concerns. These are real dynamics that could affect game outcomes, team chemistry, and yes, gambling lines that fans have money on.
Against each other in the playoffs and then hanging out together. And it's like, wow, yeah, you're not talking game plan strategy or none of that. Sure you are. You're giving up the house. You are. And now we got Paige Bueckers coming out saying, our relationship is nobody's business. Wrong answer. Sorry, not sorry, don't know what to tell you. Because your relationship has oozed over into your profession. All right, that's whether you like it or not, you're on the same team. So
let's talk about the elephant in the room. Azzi Fudd went #1 overall in the 2025 WNBA draft to Dallas, the same team where Paige Bueckers plays. And immediately, people started asking the obvious question. Did she get drafted there because she's the best available player, or because she's dating the franchise cornerstone? Now, Paige addressed this head-on. She said Azzi earned that pick based on her resilience, her strength, and her career-best year in Japan. And maybe that's true. Maybe Dallas genuinely believed Ozzy was the best player on the board. But here's the thing about perception. When you have two high-profile players in a public relationship, and one team uses the number one pick to unite them, people are going to question the decision. That's not homophobia. That's not bias. That's basic pattern recognition. And the fact that Paige felt the need to defend it so aggressively suggests she knows exactly how it looks.
Yeah, that's a thing. Are you okay before you get ready to take the court? Oh, no, I'm fine. Oh, shit. Okay. Yeah, one of the two's got to carry that the whole game. And yeah, that's the dynamic.
Think about this from a fan's perspective. You're a Dallas Wings season ticket holder. You've invested money in this team. Maybe you bet on games. Maybe you play fantasy basketball. Your emotional and financial investment is real. And now you have to wonder, if these two have a bad breakup, does your team's season go up in flames? If one of them wants out, does Dallas have to trade a franchise player just because someone's ex-girlfriend is in the locker room? That's not a comfortable position for fans to be in. And it's not unreasonable for media members to ask about it.
I guarantee you there was not a single member of the WNBA media that's got enough cojones, or any cojones, to actually ask a follow-up question to that. Because those journalists and those reporters in that room should have crushed her on the spot.
Here's what makes this even more frustrating. The WNBA media has spent years complaining about lack of access, lack of coverage, lack of respect. They want to be treated like real journalists covering a real professional league. But then moments like this happen and they completely fold. Not one person in that room had the backbone to ask a follow-up question. Not one person said, actually, Paige, when your teammates collecting salaries from the same organization, it kind of is our business. Because that's what real sports journalism looks like. When LeBron James and Dwayne Wade teamed up in Miami, reporters asked about their friendship affecting competition. When Kevin Durant joined the Warriors, people questioned whether personal relationships influenced his decision. That's normal, expected coverage. But in the WNBA, there's this protective bubble around certain topics. And relationships between players is apparently one of them.
Y'all getting paid real money now. So now it's time to put your big boy britches on and understand you got to start talking about some things. Once they break up, it will ruin the team chemistry. They'll have to trade one of them. They'll have to trade somebody because somebody decided to quit sleeping with the other one.
Let's compare this to how it would play out in men's sports. Imagine if two NBA players were in a public relationship and one team drafted them both. Imagine if they held a press conference and said, "Our relationship is nobody's business, don't ask us about it." The media would destroy them. Every sports talk show would spend a week dissecting it. Reporters would ask follow-up questions until they got real answers. Because in professional sports, when your personal life intersects with your professional responsibilities, it becomes fair game for coverage. But somehow, in the WNBA, we're supposed to pretend this is different. We're supposed to act like two teammates dating has no impact on team dynamics, no impact on decision-making, no impact on chemistry if things go south. That's not journalism, that's public relations.
This is why women's sports is an abject failure. This is a question that deserves given proper respect. You're a professional now, eyes on you, everything you do, people are watching. Exactly. Hey, this is not going away. Because you want it to. Who cares?
So let's get to the real question here. Why does this matter? Why should anyone care about Paige Bueckers and Azzi Fudd's relationship beyond basic gossip? Because it represents everything wrong with how the WNBA handles criticism right now. The league wants mainstream attention. It wants billion-dollar media deals. It wants to be taken seriously as a professional sports product. But it also wants to control the narrative, shut down uncomfortable questions, and label any scrutiny as hate. You can't have it both ways. Professional sports leagues get professional sports coverage. That means asking tough questions about conflicts of interest. That means examining whether personal relationships affect professional decisions. That means following up when someone gives you a non-answer in a press conference. Paige Bueckers said she and Azzi will be professional, great teammates, great leaders, and hard workers. And I believe her. I believe they'll show up and compete every night. I believe their relationship won't affect their effort on the court. But that's not the point. The point is that in a professional league with real money on the line, with gambling implications, with team chemistry concerns, with championship aspirations, these questions deserve real answers. Not dismissive statements about privacy, not lectures about how they've been doing this for years. Real answers about how the organization plans to handle potential complications. Real answers about whether Dallas considered the optics of drafting their star player's girlfriend first overall. Real answers about what happens if this relationship ends badly and suddenly you've got a toxic locker room situation. Those are legitimate questions, and the fact that nobody in that room had the courage to ask them tells you everything about the state of WNBA media coverage. The league celebrates relationships when it's convenient for marketing. Pride nights, social media content, feel-good stories about representation. But the moment someone asks a practical question about how those relationships intersect with professional responsibilities, suddenly it's nobody's business. That's not how professional sports work. That's not how journalism works. And if the WNBA wants to be taken seriously as a major professional league, it needs to accept that scrutiny comes with the territory. Paige Bueckers can be as professional as she wants. She can show up every day and be a great teammate. But she doesn't get to decide what questions are off limits. She doesn't get to lecture the media about doing their jobs. And she definitely doesn't get to act like asking about obvious conflicts of interest is somehow out of bounds. Because here's the reality. Dallas Wings fans are going to spend the entire season wondering if their team made a basketball decision or a relationship decision with that #1 pick. They're going to wonder if every argument, every bad game, every sign of tension between Paige and Azzy is affecting the team. They're going to wonder what happens if these two break up and suddenly their championship window closes because the locker room imploded. Those concerns are valid. Those questions are fair. And the fact that the WNBA media won't ask them is exactly why so many people don't take this league seriously. So here's my question for you. If you were a Dallas Wings fan, would you be comfortable with your team drafting your star player's girlfriend #1 overall? Would you trust that it was purely a basketball decision? And would you be okay with being told it's none of your business when you ask about it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you think this kind of coverage is what the WNBA needs more of, hit that subscribe button, because we're not afraid to ask the questions everyone else won't.